So until others join. In the last class, you would have discussed about the traditional overhead costing system. So in fact, you would have worked out two questions on that. The question number one and question number two, you would have discussed in that. So today we'll be coming to the other part of the discussion that was relating to your chapter 3, the cost assignment. So it is about the activity-based costing, the activity-based costing aspect. So we'll be looking at a couple of questions in that. So that is what our agenda for the day. I thought of starting with a kind of a theoretical question, so which will be helpful for you to gain some insights into this activity-based costing, right? So we will see. The question number 4. These chapters are uploaded to the LMS, I saw that. And also currently the faculty is in the process of finalizing to send you the course materials. So in the near future, these course outlines would be delivered to you to the via mails, right? Via mails, it would be delivered to you. So now the faculty is in the process, right? So in fact, we have printed all your materials. But until that, so what we have to do is you just need to refer the materials what we upload to the LMS, and this is chapter 3, so it was uploaded to the LMS, right? So let's look at the question number 4. Explain the activity-based costing system and discuss how activity-based costing system can be used to improve the cost allocation to the products. So the question carries two aspects. The first, you are supposed to explain what is activity-based costing, and then discuss how this ABC will improve the cost allocation to the product. Right. So from your learnings, so what do you mean by this activity-based costing? Or before we define the activity-based costing, if I just discuss about the kind of a background, why we need this activity-based costing. So what was the real need to have a, activity-based costing is an alternative. The activity-based costing is an alternative to the traditional costing system. So then why there was such a need? So why the accounting community, right, the management accounting specialist were looking for an alternative to the traditional costing system. So in fact, that was very clearly explained in your text. If I simply draw on that, so when it comes to this traditional costing system, it was introduced, in fact, several decades ago. So it was introduced so some time back. So especially when the when the corporate world was a kind of a industrial world. So it was more suitable for the industrial world, the traditional costing system. So in a couple of decades ago, so if you take the cost structure, so if you consider the cost structure of a particular product, the critical feature is that the significant component of this cost, significant component of the product cost comprised the prime cost. In the sense, the significant component of the product cost comprises the direct cost, the direct labor, the direct material, and even direct expenses had played a crucial role over there. And the proportion of this overhead cost compared to the direct cost was quite low. Say, for example, that may be 80-20 combination, right? So if the direct cost is 80% of the product, then the overheads would have been just 20% or something. So therefore, you can see that the significant component comprises the direct cost, while the overhead cost occupies an insignificant component. So in such a world, in such a scenario, so if you take a particular cost driver, if you take a particular allocation base, say direct labor or direct material, sorry, direct labor, or maybe the machine hours were considered as the two most dominant forms of cost drivers. So if you have taken a kind of a simple cost driver, and if you allocate, or if you allocate this overhead cost to the product, that was doing no harm. Or in fact, it was doing a comparatively less harm, because as we agreed, the significant component of the product was occupied by this direct cost. So therefore, this insignificant cost component, using a particular cost driver, if you simply divide it and allocate that to the product, no damage being done, because the overhead was insignificant. So therefore, in that industrial world, so this traditional costing system was operated really well. But now, so if you consider about the today's business environment, so today we are in the digital age, right? In 2020s, we are in the digital age. So when it comes to the business organization in the digital world, if you look at the cost structure of a product, the you would see a kind of a different scenario. So it was completely different from the cost structure of a product that it was there during the industrial period. So in nowadays product, in this contemporary business environment, if you take a particular product, so you would see that the significant component, a significant component of product cost would comprises the overhead cost. It's not the direct cost that occupies a significant component, but the indirect cost. Say 60-40. So in a particular product, 60% may comprises the overhead cost, while the 40% may occupies the direct cost. So that is the situation if you take a product in this contemporary business environment. So in such an instance, if you simply rely on a simple cost driver, or we call it the entity-wide cost driver, if you rely on the negative thing that can happen is that, so it's going to distort the product cost. It's going to definitely distort the product cost. So you know that the danger is this cost, if you get a kind of a inaccurate cost figure, so that is definitely going to affect the pricing of the product. So if the pricing of the product get affected, the negative thing is that, so it will adversely affect the profitability of your entity. So eventually, so you may lose your market share to the competitors. So that is the bad thing that can happen. So if the product costing went wrong. So accordingly, in an instance where this product cost comprises significantly from the indirect cost, we may need to look for a kind of a better cost allocation system. So we need to look for a better cost allocation system. In that search, so we have came up with the idea, the activity-based costing system. So that's how the activity-based costing has emerged. Correct? අපි කතා කරේ විතර කොහොමද මේ activity based costing system කියන එකක් ලෝකෙට අඳුනලා දෙන්නේ. සහ මොකක්ද ඒකේ අවශ්‍යතාවය. ඒකට අපි කිව්වා අපි ගත්තොත් industrial world එකේ තිබුණු business organization එක ඒකේ significant component එකක් cost එකකින් product cost එකකින් comprise උනේ direct cost. ඒකට 80%ක් වගේම product cost එක direct cost එකක්. එතකොට 20%ක් වගේ තමයි overheads තිබුණේ. තොර ඒ වගේ අවස්ථාවක අපි entity wide allocation base එකක් use කරලා හරියට direct labor, machine hours ඔය වගේ basis එකක් use කරලා අපි මේ overhead cost එක allocate කරාට ඒකේ ලොකු impact එකක් තිබුණේ නැහැ. මොකද ඒක insignificant component එකක්. ඒ නිසා ඒකේ product cost වලට බලපෑමක් නැහැ. ඒ අනුව pricing වලට බලපෑමක් නැහැ. සහ eventually profitability එකට බලපෑමක් නැහැ. නමුත් වර්තමානයේ අපි ගත්තොත් තියෙන product එකක්. ඒතර අපි දකිනවා ඒ product එකේ significant component එකක් occupy කරනවා this variable cost. අපි හිතමු 60ක් වගේ variable cost තියෙන පුළුවන්. direct cost එක, direct labor, direct material වගේ දේවල් තියෙන්නේ බොහොම අඩු ප්‍රමාණයක් නේ. එතකොට ඒක අපිට පේනවා variable cost එක significant component එකක් නිසා අපි entity wide ratio එකක් use කරලා entity wide allocation base එකක් use කරලා මේ cost එක allocate කරොත් එතනදී අපිට එන්නේ distorted cost figure එකක්. cost figure එක accurate cost figure එකක් නෙමෙයි, it's a distorted cost figure. distorted cost figure එකක් ආවොත් අපි දන්නවා එතන තියෙන භයානකම තමයි ඒක product pricing වලට බලපාන. The pricing is going to be inaccurate. The pricing inaccurate වෙච්ච ගමන් profitability එකට affect කරනවා. So profitability එක affect කරපුවාම අපි දන්නවා අපි we are going to lose our market share to the competitors. So that was the idea behind why we need this activity based costing. Then what is activity based costing? So මොකක්ද මේ activity based costing කියන්නේ? So we call it's an alternative to the traditional costing system. So in fact, it's an alternative. But here, the most important thing is that in this activity-based costing, our fundamental belief is that the cost is caused by the activities. Right? Our fundamental belief or the fundamental premises is that the cost is caused by the activities, and the product make demand, or the cost object make demand for these activities. But in contrast, if you take a traditional costing system, what was the philosophy? So their philosophy was that product or the cost object causes the cost. Right? The cost is caused by the product or the cost object. So therefore, they tend to believe that so it was driven by, this cost was driven by the direct labor, or it may be the machine hours. That is what they believe. But in contrast, in the activity-based costing system, as we believe the cost is driven by the activities, so cost is caused by the activities. So what we are going to do, so we are going to look for the different activities in an organization. We are looking for the different kinds of activities in an organization. So that may be the machine related activities, that may be the other activities. There can be different kinds of activities, right? So in a range of activities we may identify, and these activities are what we considered as the cost centers, and in fact we call it activity cost pools, or activity cost centers, right? We call them. And then, having identified these activities, and we call that, I told you that the product make demand for these activities. Product make demand for these activities. So in that, what we should do, so we need to look for a kind of a appropriate cost driver. So having identified an appropriate cost driver, so we need to link this cost that is initially being allocated to these activities to the final product, to the cost object. So you may be looking for a kind of activity cost drivers, and then link that to the final cost object. So accordingly, we can basically see there are uh, two fundamental differences uh, in the activity-based costing system and the traditional costing system. So the first one, it comes in the first stage of allocation. In the sense, uh, under traditional costing system, you used to have several departments as the cost centers. So the different departments, there were like the manufacturing departments and also the service department. Likewise, the different departments were there, and those are being considered as the cost centers. But in contrast, under activity-based costing system, what we do, we'll be recognizing the activities, a kind of a wide range of activities, not just one or two, but maybe wide range of activities would be identified as the cost centers. So therefore, the number of cost centers would be the ABC is having a greatest number of uh, cost centers. Then the second thing is that the second difference is that so that comes in the second stage of allocation. So what is the second stage of allocation? Having allocated the cost initially to these activities, then you have to take this cost to the final cost object. So in doing so, you need to look for an appropriate cost driver, emphasizing or considering the cause and effect relationship. Considering the cause and effect relationship, so you need to look for the appropriate cost drivers. So here you may witness that there may be several, not just one or two cost driver, but in contrast, there may be like sometimes it might mean uh, 5 to 10 cost drivers. So depending on the number of activities that you may have, you would be having different kinds of cost drivers. So there the focus is about the cause and effect. So which was not necessarily the case under the traditional costing system. Under that traditional costing system, you would have used only one or two cost drivers, namely the direct labor or the machine hours, but that was not necessarily the cause and effect relationship was there. So sometimes it has resulted in arbitrary allocation of cost. It had resulted in the arbitrary allocation of cost, what we call uh, in an instance where there's no cause and effect relationship. There's no cause and effect relationship. And that's about the activity-based costing system. So then it asks you how this ABC system can use to improve the cost allocation to the product. Yes, in fact, now we have discussed. So it happens in two stages, as I have told you. So in ABC, in contrast to the traditional costing system, we are looking for more cost centers. So in fact, they are activity cost centers. So the different activities that is being carried out or that is being taken place in an organization. So it's a kind of improvement. And the other thing is that, so it considers about the cause and effect relationship when you are linking this cost that is accumulated initially in the cost centers, the activity cost centers to the final product. So by way of doing that, so it will improve the costing system, cost allocation system. So then you may come up with the appropriate product cost. It means appropriate pricing means good profitability, healthy profitability. So that is what we call the activity-based costing system. Okay, so shall we write something on that? So if I dictate, can you take them down? So that's how I think we used to have it, right? පුතාල මම ආන්සර් එක ඩික්ටේට් කරොත් පුතාලට ඒක ටේක් ඩවුන් කරන්න පුළුවන් නේද? Yes, I'm looking for kind of answer, yeah. Yes. So can you all hear me? Hope you all are, right? Yes, I'm waiting for a kind of answer. Yeah. So if I dictate, can you take that down? That's the question that I'm asking here. So it's yes or no, or you need not. ඒක අවශ්‍ය නැද්ද? So can you hear me? So can anyone let me know that you can hear me? Okay. What is the demand by costing, traditional costing? Yes. Okay. What is the demand by costing, traditional costing? What is the demand by cost? Uh, I don't get that, Uda. What is the demand by cost in traditional costing? No, I don't get that. Okay, you can hear. Right. Okay. So if I dictate the answer, you can take it down, right? Okay. Fine. So let me. Okay. What is driven by cost in traditional costing? The cost is driven by the product. That was the fundamental belief when it comes to the traditional costing. The cost is driven by the final product. That was the kind of a fundamental thinking in this traditional costing system. But in contrast, so when it comes to an activity-based costing system, the fundamental belief or the philosophy is that the cost is driven by the activities. Cost is driven by the activities. So it's a fundamental change. Earlier, it was the final product, but now it is the kind of activities. Okay, good. Right, then let me dictate the traditional costing system. The traditional costing system which was invented, which was invented, the traditional costing system which was invented several decades ago, several decades ago, several decades ago, was more suitable, was more suitable, was more suitable for a business organization, for a business organization for a business organization operated business organization operated in the industrial world, in the industrial world. The key characteristics, the key characteristics the key characteristics of a product of a product that was manufactured, the key characteristics of a product that was manufactured of a product that was manufactured in this time, in this time, in this time, were the key characteristic of a product that was manufactured in this time were First, a significant component of cost, a significant component of cost, a significant component of cost of the product, comprised direct cost. A significant component of cost of the product comprised direct cost. While the variable cost, sorry, while the overhead cost occupied insignificant, insignificant component of the product cost. Then we take the second characteristic. Then you can say second, the varieties of product was quite low. The varieties of product is quite low. So you were producing either one or two products or even one product. That may be the case. So the product varieties were quite low, right? Those are the two characteristics. Now we take, in contrast, in the modern business environment, the product cost comprises significant component of product cost comprises overhead cost. While direct cost occupies insignificant component of cost. While direct cost occupies insignificant component of cost. Then you can say also the product varieties also the product varieties, also the product varieties are quite high. Product varieties are quite high. So in this backdrop, the traditional costing system, which was designed, the traditional costing system, which was designed to the industrial world, the traditional costing system, which was designed to the industrial world, is no longer suitable for the current, is no longer suitable to the contemporary business environment. It's not suitable to the contemporary business environment. Thus, a need was arisen as to a more sophisticated costing system. A need was arisen as to a more sophisticated costing system. Accordingly, the activity-based costing system, activity-based costing system was introduced. Accordingly, the activity-based costing system was introduced, right? So that is what our first paragraph, right? Okay. Now let's move on to the second paragraph. So the second paragraph we start with ABC system is an alternative to the ABC system is an alternative to the traditional costing system. ABC system is an alternative to the traditional costing system. The fundamental belief fundamental belief in this ABC system, the fundamental belief in this ABC system is, the fundamental belief in this ABC system is the activities causes the activities causes the activities causes the cost. The activities causes the cost. And the product make demand, and the product make demand, the product make demand for these activities, and the product make demand for these activities. But in contrast, under a traditional costing system, under traditional costing system, the belief was product causes the cost. Product causes the cost. Product causes the cost. In an ABC system, it identifies several activity cost centers. In an ABC system, it identifies several activity cost centers. In contrast to one or two cost centers identified in traditional costing system. Also, the ABC system identifies several activity cost drivers. Considering the cause and effect, relationship, cause and effect relationship between the activities and the final product, between the activities and the final product. Okay, now let's move on to the final paragraph, third paragraph. Since ABC system relies on cause and effect relationship in allocating the cost to the product, it results in accurate cost information. This in turn affect the product pricing. Thereby the profitability of the business. Right. So this is what the answer should be. You first explain the background, how this ABC has emerged, then you explain what is ABC, and then you discuss how this ABC improved the cost allocation to the product, right? Okay, so it took us nearly 45 minutes, right? Okay, so but I believe that it would have given you some kind of a theoretical understanding into this activity-based costing. So now let's come and apply that to a question scenario. Let's move on to the question number 6. The Triple Limited makes 3 types of gold watches, that is Diva, Classic, and Porsche. So let's say D, C, and P. A traditional product costing system is used at present. So currently they are operating a traditional costing system, although an ABC system is being considered. So currently they are considering an ABC system. The details of the 3 products of a typical period are, okay, you are given the details of the product during a typical period. The labor hours, machine hours, material cost per unit is given. The direct labor cost is ₹6 per hour, and production overheads are absorbed on a machine hour basis. The overhead absorption rate for the period is ₹28 per machine hour. So you have worked out the predetermined, the overhead absorption rates, and accordingly you have worked out what is the OAR. It's 28. Then it asks you to calculate the cost per unit for each product using traditional method, assuming overheads are absorbed on the basis of machine hour. Okay. So you can take, I would say, 5 minutes time. Yeah. Take 5 minutes time and work out what is the cost per each product. Product B, C and P. So what is the cost? Okay, so without taking much time, so shall we have a look at that? So it won't take much time. So just asking how this works under a traditional system, right? Okay, so let us take the information. So that is relating to three products. You have D, C, and P. So let's take that. So it's D, C, and P. So those are the three products that you are manufacturing at the moment. So then the direct material information given 2012 25. 2012 25. So it is direct material. Then you have the direct labor. It's 6 per hour, and the labor hours are given 0.5, 6 into 0.5, then it is 6 into 1.5, 1.5, and then it is 1. So it is 6 now. So you work out the direct labor. Now it's time to identify the direct, sorry, not direct, but the manufacturing overhead cost. So there it says that it is based on the machine hour basis. The OAR is 28. The machine hours is 1.5 to 28. It's 1 into 28. And then there you have 3. So that is 3 into 28. So consequently, once you work that out, you would come up with the product cost. Under traditional costing system, so this is what it is. So this is the cost per unit. Cost per unit. Right? Okay. Now let's continue with the question, what it is there. So have you managed to see that? So I was working in Excel. Did you see that? Yes. So I need that audience to be somewhat responsive. I do not know that whether you have seen this. Have you? Have you seen that I work out the question? So come up with that. So you need to respond, right? So otherwise, I feel that there is something useless. So no point of wasting the time, even yours and mine. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Right. Fine. So now let's look at the other one. So the first requirement was fulfilled. Then it says that the total production overheads are rupees 654,500. And further analysis showed that the total production overheads can be divided as follows. Cost related to setup, machinery, material handling, inspection, likewise. So that's how the cost allocation. Then it asks you, the following total activity volumes are associated with each product line for the period as a whole. Number of setup, number of movement, number of inspection. calculate the cost per unit for each product using ABC method. Okay, now you are supposed to calculate the product cost using the ABC method. So in contrast to what we do, we did that under the traditional system now. Now you've been asked to calculate the cost under the ABC. Okay, give it a try. Yeah, if you get it as the kind of a direct material at depending on the total number of units, is that, yeah. Even if you do that, eventually the answer is going to be same, no problem. So if you calculate that is for the direct material, that is for the labor, and that is for the overheads, no problem, the same result. But I would say that it's a kind of a waste of time. So it takes more time, but it's not inaccurate, it is correct. So you may be getting into the same answer. Okay, give it a try. Cost under ABC. Okay, so shall we have a look at that? Hopefully you would have attempted. So the only thing which is new to you, that is going to be the manufacturing overheads dealing with that, right? So let us take the manufacturing overheads. So here, so in the ABC, you need to have this the cost distribution sheet. That is the activities need to identify first. Activities must be identified. So as per the question, it says that the couple of activities, it's set up. So you have activity called setups, and the other activity, machinery related, machine related activities. Then you have material handling related activities. Handling related activities. Inspection. Inspection related activities. Yeah. Then we have total production cost 654, 500. No, so we can develop divide them according to the percentage. It was 35% over here, so it's 229,075. Then it's 20%. Then we have 15%. Then we have 30%. This is the cost that you have. That is the cost. You have identified the activities, then the cost. Then you need to identify the activity cost drivers. Activity cost drivers. So what are the activity cost drivers here that you find? The setups is driven by what? So based on the given information, that is going to be number of setups, isn't it? So considering about the cause and effect relationship, that is number of setups. That is what drives the cost. Then when you come to the material, that is number of movement, number of movement. Number of movement, number of setups, number of movements. Number of movements. Then what about inspection? So that may be the number of inspection. It's quite straightforward, isn't it? Number of inspection. Then what about the machinery? So something straight away you can find that it was not there in the table, but you can see that. So if you refer above, you can see the machine hours is given. So therefore the reasonable basis could be the machine hours, number of machine hours. So then you need to take the rate. So how many setups being done during the period under consideration? You can see that you have performed 670 setup, 670. Then movements 120. So then you have inspection, 1000 inspection being carried out. Then we can see the number of machine hours. You need to figure that out. And per unit basis, it would have given machine hours 1.5. Machine hours It's 750 units into 1.5 plus the second product. It's product C, 1250 watt, 1251 machine hours per. And the other one, it is 7000, that is into 3. So that is going to be the kind of a machine hours. Now you can work out cost driver rate. So if you divide this cost by the rate, so you get the cost driver rate. So per setup, how much is the cost? If you get this cost related to the setup divided by the rate, this is per unit scenario. And similarly, machinery divided by the number of machine hours per machine hour. Material handling divided by the number of radians. That's it. So it's inspection divided by 1000. It's going to be, yeah. So let us take that to 2 decimal places. Okay. So this is the situation. Right. Now this will help you to figure out the manufacturing cost. So let's take the 3 products. You have product D, the products that you have D, C, and P. B, C, and P. And let's work out what is the manufacturing cost. Manufacturing overhead cost. Let us work out. So starting from the setups, per unit, that's going to be 300, per setup, it's 341. So let me refer this, 341.9. So how many setup being performed for product D? So there were 75 setup. There were 75 setup being performed. Okay, taken. Then we have C again. This one, how many setup? You have performed 115 setup. And here you have this into 480. Okay, so this is it. Similarly, you can do this for the machinery. It's 5.6 per machine hour. How many machine hours were consumed by product D? That was 715 to 1.5. That was 715 to 1.5. Then you have for the product C, that is into number of machine hours, 1215 to 1. So it's 1250, no? Finally, that was for product P. There were 7,000 units. Per unit, it takes 3. So therefore, altogether, 21,000 machine hours being consumed in total. Then you have the material handling. Again, it's 818.13 multiplied by number of movements. It's 12. It's 12. It's 21. And it's 87. Right. It was taken. Then you have the inspection. $196.35. Inspection 150. Just 180. And Finally, 670. 670. So this is something need not, but just to confirm whether you have done it correctly, if you take the total, that should correspond to the cost. So just work that out and let's witness ourselves, confirm ourselves. Have we done it correctly? Yeah. So it shows that when you take the total cost, we have done it perfectly. You have done it correctly. And here, most importantly, you need to take the total manufacturing cost, total manufacturing overhead. Overhead, you need to take that for each of the product. So this is it. Then if you divide it by the number of units, so you may be able to come up with the per unit manufacturing overhead. How much is that? It's 750, 1250 and 7000. So the per unit manufacturing overhead is this much. You can do that for all the three products, and this is it. So this is your per unit manufacturing overhead. So if you take now, if you take the cost under this ABC system, so this is how it look like. Direct material, direct labor, it won't vary, but the manufacturing overhead. So here you can see it's 94.95, 79.07, and 69.21. So if you take the total, that is the per unit cost. It's 117.95, 100.07, and it's 100.21. This is about production cost, product cost per unit. So this is the situation under the ABC. So under the ABC system, this is it. So let me take the comparative figures, then let's look at how it was under the traditional system. This was the situation under the traditional system. Now you can see, compare the situation and see what has happened. So if you take the product cost of D under the ABC, it should be 117.95, but currently it is 65. So therefore it has resulted in, we call it under costing. It has resulted in a situation of, we call it under costing. Then if you consider the second scenario, it was 100.07 and it was 49. And if you compare that, you can see that again under costing scenario. And finally, that time it has resulted in a over costing scenario. So yeah. Now in all the three instances, it seems that, yeah, so this should be 117. So this is under costing, and it's, sorry, yeah, this is ABC. No? ABC is greater, it's, yeah, it's over costing. Right. So this is the ultimate consequences of this traditional costing system. So under traditional costing system, so once you compare it with the ABC, you can identify the overcosting and undercosting. Undercosting and overcosting. You can see that the product D and C has witnessed a kind of undercosting scenario. So its cost is less than what it should be. Because the more sophisticated one is the ABC. So therefore, so once you compare that, you can see that its cost is less compared to the ABC. So therefore, it's undercosting. But here, ABC, the traditional costing is higher than the ABC. It's a overcosting scenario. So that is the ultimate consequence of this. So how do you get the machinery? Or what is the base of activities? Okay, good. So when it comes to this machinery, how we get that? It was machine hours. It was machine hours, right? So if I go above, you can see that this is number of machine hours. I have clearly mentioned that. So how you get that? So you can see that from the beginning, you are given the machine hours per unit. Per unit requirement is given. So if you multiply it by the product number of units, so you would be getting the total machine hours, the number of machine hours. It was 715 to 1.5, 1215 to 1, 7000 into 3. And that's how I managed to get that. Okay, fine. Okay, so this is what we call the undercosting and overcosting scenario. Okay, let's look at what is the next requirement. The second one, the requirement was explain why cost per unit calculated under ABC method are often very different to cost per unit calculated under traditional method. Use the information given in triple limited to explain your answer. Okay, we have used that information, but all what we have to do is explain why something like this happens. Why this cost that we have calculated under ABC is different from the traditional costing system. Yes. What are the reasons? ඇයි ඒතර පුතාලා ABC system එක යටතේ ගණනය කරන එකක් වෙනස් වෙන්නේ. ABC යටතේ ගණනය කරන cost එකක් product cost එකක් traditional costing system එකට වඩා වෙනස් වෙන්නේ ඇයි? So it's simple, no? So what is that? One reason, you are using more activity cost centers. You are using more activity cost centers, and you are considering about the cause and effect relationship. So when you're linking this cost to the cost object, when you're linking this activity cost to the cost object, you are looking at the cause and effect relationship. So that is one thing, the cause and effect relationship consideration. That relationship. So once you consider about the cause and effect relationship, so it results in a more accurate costing. Cause and effect relationship එක consider කරාට පස්සේ අපි දන්නවා එතන ඉන්නේ හොඳ accurate cost එකක් තමයි අපිට හම්බෙන්නේ. ඒතර මේ ABC යටතේ හම්බෙලා තියෙන cost එක more reliable. So therefore they are considering about more cost centers, so they are relying on more activity cost centers, and also when they are linking that activity cost to the cost object, they are looking at the cause and effect relationship. So what really drives the cost? That was the consideration, right? That was the main consideration. So if you think more in that particular direction, you can see that definitely this difference is not caused by the direct material and the direct labor, because in both the instances it was same. It was same, exactly the same. But if you take the manufacturing overhead, that is significantly different. So you can see that out of these two instances, so we have witnessed greatest manufacturing overhead for product P. So අපි ගත්තොත් product P එකේ අපිට පේනවා ලොකු manufacturing overhead එකක් තියෙනවා. නමුත් මේ අවස්ථාවවලදී අපි බැලුවොත් අපිට වෙනවා වැඩිම overhead එකක් ගිහින් තියෙන්නේ D ට, product D ට. ඒකට මෙතන 42 වෙනකොට මෙතන 94 වෙනවා. මෙතන 84 වෙනකොට මෙතන තියෙන්නේ 69. ඒ වගේම මෙතන තියෙන difference එකත් significantly higher difference එකක්. ඒතර මේක තමයි මේ manufacturing overheads වල වෙනස නිසා තමයි මෙහෙම cost එකේ වෙනසක් හිටින්නේ. එතකොට අපි තවදුරටත් හිතුවොත් ඇයි මේ traditional system එක යටතේ මේ වගේ cost එකක් ආවේ? මොකද traditional costing system එක rely කරේ one what do you call that, one particular cost driver. Cost drivers එකයිනේ මෙයාලා consider කරේ. That was the machine hours. Machine hours කියන එක තමයි consider කරේ. එතකොට machine hours වැඩිපුරම භාවිතා වෙන්නේ කොතනද? එතන ඇති අනිවාර්යෙන්ම වැඩි cost එක. ඒකට අපි question එකට ගිහිල්ලා බැලුවොත් අපිට පෙනේ machine hours වැඩිම භාවිතා වෙලා තියෙන කොතෙන්ටද? You can see that it was for the product P. You can see that machine hours you are taking, it takes 3 machine hours. The machine hours තුනක් තියෙනවා කියන්නේ obviously that is the result. So because your only cost driver what you consider is machine hours, so therefore the product that consumes greatest number of machine hours would be tend to have a greatest cost. So it's obvious. But here we believe that that is not simply driven by the machine hours. The machine hours is one particular driver, but apart from that there are many more cost drivers. There were many more cost drivers. So because of that we have witnessed, so when come to the product P, no, that is not the case. The manufacturing overhead must be something less than what it should be. So here you believe that the all overhead cost is driven by one cost driver, whereas in this instance you have believed that the manufacturing overheads is driven by several. So in fact there are 4 cost drivers. One cost driver versus 4 cost drivers. 4 versus 1, right? You are using more cost, what do you call that, cost drivers. You consider the cause and effect and more cost drivers, no? Or several, I would say, several cost drivers. And similarly you can see that product C has kind of simple situation. They have used one, so it tend to have a kind of a comparatively less what do you call the manufacturing overhead. But here, so from a through a sense, once you work that out, you can see that C should have like 79.07. That must be their real manufacturing overhead. But in contrast, we have simply taken 28. It's simply because when it comes to the machine hours consumption, it was just 1 hour. So similarly here also the same. So here we believe that it was 1.5, and here, but when you work the things out, considering the 4 cost drivers, no, that should not be the case. So that is the scenario. Now you should witness why these costs are different, because here we believe the cost is driven by a one cost driver, whereas in the AB system the cost is driven by several cost drivers. And also here we focus about the cause and effect relationship. Here we believe in arbitrary, or it results in arbitrary cost allocation. So that's what the end result. That's what the end result. Okay. Now let's come to the final instance. It says that if an organization switch to ABC method, discuss its implication on pricing and product profitability. So it's obvious, no? When in the very first instance, I have discussed with you what is the implication on the kind of pricing. So if you get the accurate costing, it results in accurate pricing, or it results in competitive pricing. Competitive pricing. You can offer a very competitive price in contrast to the traditional costing system. Under traditional costing system, you could see that when it comes to pricing this product D and C, so you can see the cost is 65. So you may be pricing them. Say that you are trying to keep a margin of, say you're going to keep 50% margin. So if I work out the selling price, over here, assuming you are keeping 50% margin on the cost. So this is going to be your price, right? And here, if I apply same for the rest, this would be the pricing. So if I take the selling price over here, if I try to keep the same margin, say 50%, you keep 50%, අපි 150ක ලාභ තියලා විකුණනවා කිව්වොත් ඔන්න මේ එක එක භාණ්ඩේ විකුණන්න ඕන මිල. හරිනම් අපි product D එක මාකට් එකේ විකුණන්න ඕනේ 176කට. රුපියල් 177කට වගේ ප්‍රයිස් එකකට. හැබැයි දැන් අපි currently එක විකුණන්නේ කීයකටද? 97.750කට. ඒතකොට ඇත්තටම අපි මේ විදිහට කොච්චර sales generate කරත් හොඳට sales සිද්ධ වෙනවා ඇති. Right? If you consider about this product B, you may be making enormous sales. You may be making significant sales. Right? එතකොට මෙතන significant sale එකක් සිද්ධ වෙනවා ඇති. නමුත් ආයතනයේ profitability එක වැඩි වෙන්නේ නැතුව ඇති. මොකද හේතුව ඇත්තටම බැලුවොත් මේකේ cost එක කීයද product එකේ? ඇත්තම cost එක තියෙනවා රුපියල් 117.95. ඒතර 94 වික්ක කියන්නේ එතනත් අපිට loss එකක් තියෙනවා රුපියල් 20ක. So that is the situation. ඒතර මෙතන inaccurate cost තියෙන්නේ. ඒතර අපි ඒක 150ක margin එකක් තියලා වික්කත් වැඩක් නැහැ. තාමත් loss. ඒතර මෙතනත් එහෙමයි. ඒතර මෙතන product C එකත් හොඳට විකිනෙනවා ඇති. මොකද අපි දෙන price එක comparatively ගොඩක් low. නිසා අපි sales හොඳට සිද්ධ වෙනවා ඇති. නමුත් still we may be suffering losses. ආයතනයේ sales වැඩි වෙනවා. නමුත් ආයතනයේ ලාභ නැහැ. බලපුවම ඇත්තටම අපි මේක පාඩුවට තමයි run කරගෙන ගිහින් තියෙන්නේ. So if you sell them at 73.5, still you make losses because the real cost is 100.07. රුපියල් 100ටවත් අඩුම තරම විකුණන්න ඕන එක අපි විකුණන්නේ 73.750. So on the other hand, when it comes to the product P, you may be selling them at 172.5. But that may be something kind of a overpricing. So you should have sold them at this price. So මේ P එකේ අපි බැලුවොත් අපේ sales අඩු ඇති. මොකද අපි price එක ගොඩක් high than what it should be. මේ price එක වෙන්න ඕනේ ප්‍රමාණයටත් වඩා මෙතන වැඩි. ඒ නිසා අපි මේකේ sales unit ගත්තොත් sales units අඩු ඇති. sales අඩු ඇති. right? නමුත් ඒක අපි හොඳ profitable product එකක් අපි ඒක competitive price එකකට දුන්නා නම් 150කට වගේ අපිට හොඳ sale එකක් ගන්න තිබ්බා. So likewise, so this traditional costing would result in underpricing and undercosting and overcosting. As a result of that, it results in overpricing or underpricing. So you won't be able to offer a competitive price. So if you operate the ABC system, you would be able to offer a kind of a competitive price. If it is traditional one, It's a traditional system. What happens is, so you would suffer from underpricing or underpricing or overpricing. So that is the situation. එක්ක underprice වෙන්න පුළුවන් නැත්නම් overprice වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේම profitability, if you offer a competitive price, your profitability would be high. Profitability to be high. Profitability would be high. But here, comparatively, the profitability is low. Profitability. So you are going to lose your market share to the competitors. So if you operate a traditional costing system, so eventually you are going to lose your market share to the competitors. Lose the market share to the competitors. So that's the pathetic situation that is associated with the traditional costing system. Okay, so that's what the expectation. So see whether you are fine with this. Yes, Fada? Yes. So if you have any question, yes, would like to answer them. So if not, that's all what is expected for the day, the today's discussion. This you are not going to respond, right? Okay. So then I may believe that, so you may be getting that, right? Okay, then that's it for the day. We may meet in the next week. So then we'll discuss on the job costing. So I may discuss the tutorial on job costing. Okay, then thank you very much. So for the day, we may stop our discussion. See you in the next class.